Well, I think it's fair to say that we try to have a bit of fun on House of Rugby, but every so often you come to a place where you just kind of have to stop. And we're in Hiroshima. It's actually the afternoon of England against Australia, but my word, this place puts a whole different perspective on everything that we've been talking about over the last few months. James and Mike are alongside, and our lovely guide Ree. And you've been born and brought up in Hiroshima. I know you went to Tokyo for 4 years, but now you are a guide here as well.
Yes, I'm doing.
And your parents survived the bomb in August 1945. Just tell us a little bit about Hiroshima through the eyes of your family.
Yeah, and in 1945, August 6, in the morning, 8:15, a single atomic bomb was dropped here. And a lot of people died. So about 140,000 people died by the end of the year. And my parents, my mother was 16 years old, and she was very far away from here. But next day she came because she was looking for her little brother. He was 12 years old, and he was breaking houses to make spaces between houses to prevent from fire from spreading. But she was exposed to radiation because next day she came.
Right.
So they didn't realise that after the bomb, when you came, that they were still going to get ill and still have problems?
They don't know at all. They don't know at all. And my father was 20 years old, and he was at a station, so 3 kilometers from hypocenter, and he was working there.
Yes.
And he lost his consciousness, and because of the blast. And when he noticed his colleague was standing near a window, he was dead. And already fire spread, and it was very difficult to come out from the building. But he somehow went out and went to the top of the mountain. And he was there until fire settled down.
Will you tell us a little bit about the dome behind us and how difficult a decision it was, I suppose, to turn it into a memorial as opposed to get rid of it and almost to forget about it?
Yeah, because a lot of people said it should be destroyed because it evoked painful memory and also looked very dangerous. But other people said it should be preserved to say no more Hiroshimas. And it was determined to be preserved in 1966, and then it was designated as the World Heritage Site in 1996.
So obviously, you see the pictures of pure devastation.
Yeah.
Then when did the rebuilding process start to turn it into the city that it now is today?
It took a long time, but its interesting thing is in the beginning, they just worked so hard to restore the water supply and electricity and the gas. So it just very in the beginning, it was restored. But other buildings, I think it took about 10 years. So because this Peace Memorial Park was built 1955, so those days, yes, gradually.
Can I ask you a little bit about your parents' memories of that time and of the day? I mean, did they ever talk to you about it and what the experience was like?
My mom didn't talk about it for a long time because she was very worried about us because survivors were discriminated. But I became a guide, so I asked a lot about it. And then she said, at that time she came here and she checked bodies to look for her little brother, and it was sometimes difficult to distinguish if they were females or males because they were heavily burnt. And sometimes she had crossed river, and because a lot of the bridges fell, so she crossed river by boat, and it was like flooded with corpses.
Because it's interesting actually with the world the way it is at the moment, with America how it is, with China how it is, with everyone's arguing with everyone else. This kind of becomes more relevant than ever, a place like this, because this is the extreme version. You know, only twice in history were they ever used in a war, and we threaten it all the time. So it's kind of almost more important now that places like this, that they keep that, I think, just thinking about it, you know, because everyone's very flippant about stuff, and then you come and see here, and we saw the before and after photos of you know, Hiroshima, beautiful place. The next time, everything's gone, apart from here, the building over there, a bridge.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
You've obviously you've had 6 months living in Japan, haven't you? Did you come down here as a player?
No, I didn't. And obviously, you know, I studied history. I was going to go to university and read history. So I was obviously very much aware of it, but didn't quite know the details. And I've kind of been to Auschwitz in Poland. You know, to come to places like here, there's lots of locations around the world that kind of show the best and worst of humanity. And I think, you know, when I went to Germany, Poland, I was like blown away by such evil. Like I couldn't comprehend it. And to come here again and actually, you know, I think what you were saying, younger generations, when they're removed from it, it's just a story in a book or it's just a monument. But then when you see the images of it and you see what happened and you hear the stories, it's so hard to relate. But we, you know, because we are so exposed to things now on WhatsApp groups, because we see horrific stuff all the time, you kind of do understand how fragile human life is and what happened here and how terrible it is and how every day you just pick up the news and there's some countries fighting with some other country threatening this. And I think this should be like a marker in the sand to go, do you know what, we went there and it really was terrible because, you know, we were talking about it earlier, that the bombs they've got now are sort of 3,800 times more powerful than what was dropped here. And it's horrific. So I think it's really important, it's very moving to see that and to understand and to hear the stories. And I think when you sit there and talk to someone like yourself or see the videos and hear about parents talking about children, finding them with their skin hanging off and burnt, and then, you know, thinking that you dealt with this, and then everybody's getting cancer and getting illness or radiation or this keloid scarring and all this kind of stuff they're getting, and it never stops, and then people didn't want to be associated with them. It's kind of quite shocking and makes you think. So when the young kid came around and was like, do you want to sign up to anti-nuclear stuff? I was like, yeah. I think that's why I signed up for that or something else. It could have been anything, but they did assure me that was it. I didn't have to put my bank details in. So.
It's amazing there are still sort of clipboards and questionnaires and that kind of thing. We are very lucky and we're all happy to acknowledge that, but it is extraordinary being here, how you can just feel the history. I didn't know a huge amount about it, but you cannot escape the history of this place.
No, and I don't think you should do. I think, as James said, it's a marker and a reminder. It also shows the resilience of people, that you now have a thriving city around it, and shows that people have always got to move on, but you've always got to look to those pasts and just the hideous nature of what happened. You know, the plane that just comes over you, everyone's having a normal day, and then, what was it, 43 seconds they reckon the bomb dropped for from when it was off the plane to then suddenly another 45 seconds later the whole landscape has completely been changed forever, and people's lives have changed forever, and it just shows how horrible war can be. And it is always, you just can't imagine. You can read about it, but then being there sort of imprints on you more, because you think what you would feel like if you were there, or you knew that your kid was at school there. Obviously, there's a memorial to all the children that were massively affected, and most of them who were killed. And you just think, if you were working somewhere as a parent and you knew that your kid was at school there, and you have to go and wade through a river of bodies to try and find them, hoping that you'll find them, it's just, you know, something that you hope you'll never have to experience, and you just can't. You'll never can sort of put yourself in the situation of what you would feel. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of a sensory overload, isn't it?
It's almost unfathomable, really. All right, well, it is obviously an amazing way to put a perspective on everything that we're doing out here in Japan. But obviously, England-Australia taking place in a few moments' time. So Mike's actually shot off to go and do a quick interview. Are you happy to take us over and to tell us a little bit about is it called the Bell of Peace? Is that
okay.
Yeah, can we do that? We'll walk and talk as we go.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about how Hiroshima likes to remember the events here. It's very, very prevalent that there is a lot of history around, and that there's there are monuments and a lot of respect to be shown.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes, and here is everything is here and to show, and all monuments tell the stories. Yes.
Yeah. In terms of, I suppose, the future for Hiroshima.
Yes.
Does it feel like the pain has sort of disappeared a little bit, or is it a scar that the city will always carry?
Actually, survivors, have died a lot, and we don't have many survivors now. And actually, I don't think we have a lot of scars now, and because I think the Hiroshima people are very strong, and so we have built up the city again, and. I don't think we have really big scars in us. And but still, maybe I think we have more kind of things to have a kind of mission to talk about that. So it's a bit different. Yeah.
You said a very interesting thing earlier about the fact that your mother didn't talk about it because she felt that they were ostracized and that they were distanced. As people began to realize and to learn the actual impact of the radiation. Are the survivors today, are they respected and revered for the way that they've survived the story?
Yes, and the survivors started to talk a little bit because they were also traumatic, so they didn't want to talk. But they started to talk, and they think it's very important to spread stories. And also children are learning. So now new people are, succeeding the stories. So they are listening to the story, and also they start speaking. Yes. So that's their stories.
Do you find that very often the younger generations in a lot of countries, they learn about things that happen, and they become either very angry, they become very impassioned about it, they kind of take on people's fights. When a lot of kids go to university, they start studying Marxism and communism and all this kind of stuff, they kind of get very impassioned about it. Do you find that the younger generation in Japan are angry about what happened here? Do they resent, what happened? Do you find that they don't like the Americans, or is it not that case? Because I just think it's a very interesting thing to see what the feeling is of the younger people around here.
It's very interesting. I have never met somebody who are very angry about what happened here. But I have met a lot of the students who want to learn and who want to talk about the story and to talk about the peace. Okay. It's more important for them, I think.
Fine, okay.
So, Ree, we've obviously come to the other side now, and we've got an amazing contrast between what the beautiful building, the Prefectural Industrial Promotional Hall, was like. It's a very awkward question to ask, particularly given where we are, but how does the city cope with 140,000 people who've lost their life? And I suppose the physical effects of some of these injuries. I mean, is it possible to describe the horror that unfolded off the back of the bomb?
Yeah, most of the people, the skins were peeled and it became like hanging down from their body. So they were moving like zombies because it was very hard, painful for them to, lower their, and also their blood comes down. So it was very difficult for them. So they were like that, and zombies, they were walking. Wow. And also, many people were just burned and heavily burned and died instantly. But a lot of some people survived, and it was more painful because some people vomited their intestines, and also they lost hair, so because of radiation, and also most people they went into water.
Yes.
And people couldn't give them water because it was the rumor spread that they shouldn't give water because they would die. But so they were very thirsty and they drank water and also black rain. Wow. And black rain contained a lot of, the radiation. So they also drank and internally, exposed too.
What did they do with so obviously, we talked earlier about the bodies in the river and the bodies piled up.
Yeah.
What does people bury everything? Was it weeks before people could get rid of all the bodies? Was it?
They tried. So because we have a mound here, and because these areas are strewn with corpses, so they, as soon as possible, they cremated and buried here. But because war finished. And so August 15th, so army was dissolved. So until then, the army was helping, but nobody could do afterwards anymore. Yes. So for a long time, the body was in river, and they were when the tide different, so they go to the sea, and when tide changes, they come back to river. They were floating in river for a long time.
Am I right in saying the war finished 9 days later?
Yes.
Can you just tell us about that process?
Yeah, because August 6th, the atomic bomb was dropped here, and 3 days later, on Nagasaki, another bomb was dropped.
Yes.
And then afterwards, Japan decided, and the emperor said, it is over. The war is over. And August 15th, it was everything over.
Tell us a little bit about. This is the bell of peace.
Yes.
And is this symbolic because why?
Yeah, because this is shape, doomed shape, represents universe. Okay?
Got you.
And this bell has a world map without borders.
Yes.
So means we want the world in one world in the future.
But is there any problems with health health stuff now since the bomb? Is there more cancer in Hiroshima than any time? Is there more?
Like I don't know, but my father became a stomach cancer after 30 years, and I thought it wasn't related to because 30 years later. But after I became a guide, I studied a lot, and I noticed a lot of survivors became a stomach cancer after 30 years.
Really?
So that kind of thing happened later.
Oh, wow, okay.
And my mom had breast cancer and thyroid cancer and liver cancer and bone cancers. But still, we don't know it was related to or not. They were.
Yes.
But a lot of people became.
But now, in terms of when they build, there's no problems with radiation in Hiroshima?
Not at all, because this is very different. So because the high temperature, it was like 3,000 to 4,000 degrees Celsius. So 90% of radiation went up to air and spread to the world.
Okay.
And only 10% fell on the ground.
Wow.
And this decreased the 1 week. And 1 month later, we had a big typhoon. And that typhoon washed everything, but including people who were living on streets.
Wow.
Because they lost their houses. But also radiation were washed away. So current level of radiation is just same as other places.
Oh, wow.
Really? Can I ask you about your parents as well? Did they? You were talking about the fact that the cancers and obviously the suffering that they went through. Did they internalise that? You said your mother didn't talk about it very well. How did she cope with what she'd been through?
Actually, she was a very happy person.
Really?
And she had never grudged on anybody.
Amazing.
And so, yes, I loved her so much.
Yeah.
And she was just accepted what happened to her.
That is remarkable.
Yeah.
And it was very much the way that the people coped with it, was just to move on.
Yeah, move on is, I think, the road for survivors here.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
Shall I ring the bell?
Would you like to ring the bell, James? This is House of Rugby reiterating world peace here in Hiroshima.
Break the bell. Well, I don't know if I'm going to have the skill set to be able to do this, but we'll see. I assume we just...
One take. I'd go so far as to say that's the loudest dong we've heard in
that was
in
quite
about
a
2
big
hours.
bell ring, wasn't it?
Are you happy, Ree, that we've done it correctly?
Yes.
Yes. House of Rugby
Didn't break
for
it?
world peace.
No problem at all. Very
Amazing.
nice.
Just tell us once again about the symbolism of this bell. So we've got the globe on it, the world on it.
Yes, this is world map without any borders. You can see. So this is our dream that someday the world will become one, no wars at all. And here, this is mirror. This reflects people who come here and they're asking you what future you would like to have. And the opposite side, please look at. This is a nuclear mark where Hammer strikes a bell. And this is our dream that we would like to demolish all nuclear weapons by striking the bell. So this is one of your wish that.
I have done it, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Amazing. Just it's such a historical place. It's an extraordinary. There are certain places you go to in life where you can feel what has been before, and this is. You mentioned Auschwitz. I went to Bergen-Belsen, even somewhere like Dealey Plaza. You know the history of the place as soon as you arrive there, and it's been an absolute education. Thank you very much indeed, Ree, for your time.
Thanks for coming to Hiroshima. Thank you for visiting here.
Thank you very much. Arigato gozaimasu.
Arigatou gozaimashita.
Thank you very much.
You've been watching the House of Rugby on Joe, together with Guinness. Drink responsibly. Visit drinkaware.co.uk for the facts.